The sea was calm when the first shadow appeared on the sonar screen. Not sharp, not clear. A blur of metal contours resting where no ship should have been. The research vessel drifted above a trench in the western Pacific, its engines idling, its crew focused on a point 3,000 feet below. The sonar operator leaned closer, adjusted the gain. The outline sharpened, a hull, long, narrow, the faint arc of a conning tower, a shape that matched nothing in the catalog of missing merchant ships or downed aircraft. The expedition leader stepped to the screen. He looked once, twice. The dimensions were unmistakable. A submarine. World War II era. American. The crew said nothing for several seconds. Discoveries at that depth were rare. War relics even rarer. But this one felt different. The operator enhanced the image again. Numbers appeared on the conning tower. Corrosion blurred them, but the pattern remained. S. A break. Then 2 digits. The final 4 seemed ghosted into the metal. It was enough. 70 years after it vanished without a signal, without a survivor, without a trace, one of the U.S. Navy's lost submarines had returned to the surface world, not by rising, but by being found. The divers prepared the remotely operated vehicle. The cable unspooled slowly. The descent took hours. The camera flickered. The darkness closed around the lens like a second ocean. Silt drifted upward in thin spirals. Then, the beams caught steel, curved plating. A forward torpedo door half opened, a dent along the bow. The ROV hovered. The conning tower came into view, draped in a thin layer of marine growth. The numbers were clearer now. SSS. The missing boat. The U.S. Navy had declared it lost in 1944. No distress call. No oil slick. No debris field. Families received the same telegram. Missing. Presumed sunk. No explanation followed. Now the explanation sat on the ocean floor in perfect silence. The ROV drifted toward the forward hatch. It was closed, locked from within, a sign that the crew had never escaped. The interior was filled with silt, but the shape of the control room was visible helm wheels frozen in place, depth gauges stuck at their final readings. A pair of headphones floated gently, tethered to a rusted console by a single wire. The submarine had become a sealed time capsule. The moment of its death, preserved in pressure and dark water. No explosion had torn its hull apart. No implosion had crushed it into debris. The steel remained largely intact. The researchers studied the damage along the bow. A sharp crease, a tear near the starboard side. The pattern was familiar to the naval historian on board. He traced the dent with a cursor on the screen. He nodded once. A mine. Contact detonated. Likely during a surface run at night. A single blast. Enough to cripple, not enough to destroy. The submarine would have taken on water slowly, the bow dipping first. The crew would have fought to keep buoyancy. Pumps, valves, manual overrides. They would have sealed compartments one by one. They would have listened to the metal groan. They would have felt the deck tilt under their boots. And when the batteries flooded, the lights would have died, leaving only emergency lamps, dull orange, fading one by one. The historian spoke quietly. The others listened. He explained how a submarine died in slow motion, how the silence would have felt heavier than the water pressing in from all sides. How the final minutes were neither chaotic nor loud. Submarines did not scream when they sank, they settled. The ROV continued aft, past the galley, past the crew quarters where bunks hung like empty shelves, past the engine room where the diesel block sat motionless. A mug lay on the floor, its handle intact even after 7 decades of pressure. A wrench rested beside a panel, as if someone had dropped it seconds before the lights went out. On the starboard side of the engine room, the ROV found something unusual. A tool locker wedged open. A clipboard inside. Metal hinges fused by corrosion. A pencil lay beside it, its wood swollen but still recognizable. Words were visible on the top sheet, faded, distorted, but legible under filtered light. The historian read them aloud. Short lines. Time notations, numbers, a list of battery readings, then a final line. Flooding increasing in compartment 2, attempting to compensate. It was the submarine's last message, written for no one. Read 70 years later. The ROV moved toward the stern. There, the mystery deepened. A tear in the plating near the propeller shaft. Not from the mine. Something else. Something after sinking. A collapse caused by shifting pressure as the submarine settled on uneven terrain. The stern had twisted slightly, enough to jam the rudder permanently to port. No escape possible. The research crew recorded everything. Measurements, angles, structural conditions. The submarine's final position told its own story. Heading northeast. Depth increasing. No turn attempt. No ascent maneuver. It had tried to hold course even as it sank. The historian reviewed wartime patrol records. He matched the submarine's last known location with enemy minefields. He matched minefield maps with the dent on the bow. He matched Japanese convoy reports with American intercept attempts. Slowly, a picture formed. The submarine had been hunting a convoy. It altered course at midnight, surfaced to recharge batteries, entered a mapped but outdated minefield, hit a single mine, lost power forward. Flooding started within minutes. The crew tried to surface again. The emergency blow system likely failed when the batteries shorted. The boat descended slowly, too slowly for panic, too steadily for hope. Inside, the crew would have heard every sound. Water entering through seams, compressed air venting, metal flexing, the ocean pushing, the hull resisting. The historian explained something else, something rarely discussed. When a submarine sank slowly, air remained inside long enough for the crew to stay alive, far beyond impact. Hours, sometimes more. The darkness complete, the pressure rising, breath thinning, the temperature dropping, men sitting shoulder to shoulder in a steel coffin resting on the ocean floor. He spoke calmly, without embellishment. That made the picture sharper, more honest, more real. The American public rarely heard stories like this. Most wartime narratives focused on victory, not loss. Submarines that returned home, not submarines that dissolved into silence. But loss had a shape. Steel hulls, faded numbers, a clipboard lying beside a rusted pipe. The ROV turned its lights upward. The ceiling of the aft compartment was warped. A plate had buckled inward. The impact pattern suggested the crew had moved aft near the end, seeking higher ground. Air pockets, any delaying tactic a seasoned submarine crew would have practiced. The historian read their actions like a fossil record, precise, composed, without panic. In the auxiliary machinery room, the ROV found something unexpected, a small storage box. It had broken open when the stern twisted, papers floated free. Most disintegrated when touched by the camera's pressure wave. But one scrap remained stuck to the interior wall, a fragment of a letter. Only a few words were legible. Tell them. We stayed at our post. Then a name, first initial only. That was all. The ROV withdrew. The submarine faded back into the dark as the lights ascended. The historian remained at the monitor long after the others left. He looked at the still image of the conning tower. He noted the rust pattern, the angle of the periscope, the absence of external battle damage. He understood what it meant. The submarine never fired its final torpedoes, never sent its final report, never saw the convoy it was hunting. It had died in routine movement, a transition between tasks, a moment no one would remember except the men inside, a moment sealed by time and pressure until the ocean loosened its hold 70 years later. He closed the logbook. He said nothing more. The Navy received the coordinates within hours. Protocol required verification, a satellite image, a depth contour map, a comparison with known wrecks. Then the confirmation message left the research vessel and crossed the Pacific in less than a second. The submarine has been found. No fanfare, no headlines, just a classified transmission sent to an office where the war had ended generations earlier. The submarine's name was released days later. A name carved into the marble walls of memorials. A name read each year by families who never received remains. A name that had waited longer beneath the sea than it had served on the surface. When the announcement became public, debate began immediately. Historians argued. Veterans wrote letters. Commentators dissected the patrol orders. Some questioned why the submarine had been sent into a minefield. Others questioned why it had not been escorted by surface vessels. A few claimed the boat had been lost to friendly fire. Theories multiplied, because theories thrived where certainty ended. But the wreck itself remained objective. The dent on the bow, the sealed hatches, the twisted stern, the clipboard frozen in place. Facts that required no embellishment. The submarine had belonged to a class designed during the height of the Pacific War. Long range, capable, not fast, but durable. It carried torpedoes capable of splitting a destroyer in half. It carried deck guns for surface engagements. It carried radar that could sweep miles of ocean in seconds. Yet it remained vulnerable to the one weapon that did not care about design mines. Mines ignored tactics. Mines ignored experience. Mines required only proximity. Submarine captains knew the risks. Mines did not announce themselves. They did not reflect sonar unless struck directly. They waited. Steel spheres filled with explosive potential. Anchored by cables. Invisible at night. The historian explained how navigation worked in 1944. Dead reckoning. Speed multiplied by time. Course plotted with grease pencils. Corrections based on celestial fixes when clouds permitted. Errors accumulating inch by inch until a mile became a risk and a risk became a grave. The submarine's last patrol log, reconstructed from Navy records, showed no indication of distress. The crew had struck 2 enemy vessels earlier that month. They had avoided destroyer sweeps. They had surfaced to charge batteries twice a day. Routine, repetitive, predictable. War conducted with patience and mechanical discipline. Then the gap appeared. 24 hours without a signal? 48. 72. After a week, the Navy declared the submarine overdue. After 2 weeks, missing. After a month, lost. Families received the telegrams in identical envelopes. They read identical lines typed by identical machines. No explanation. None required. One wife wrote in her diary that she waited 3 months before accepting the truth. Another mother kept the porch light on for years. One brother enlisted in the Navy because someone had to keep the watch. They did not know their submarine lay intact on the seabed. They did not know the steel had preserved the crew's final struggle. They did not know the ocean had held the story for decades. The ROV footage changed everything. In the recording, sediment drifted through the control room like drifting ash. The dials and valves remained frozen in the positions set during the final minutes. The vent wheel on the port side had been turned fully open, a decision made to slow flooding, not to save the submarine, to buy time. Time mattered when the lights dimmed. Time mattered when oxygen fell below safe levels. Time mattered when silence replaced engines. Every minute extended the boundary between life and death.